Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Kicking things off right on Mike and I, we have a sweet day off here in the States for Memorial Day, so we figured we'd come together and knock a quick episode out. And we're actually going to do the second part of Mike's Book Nook after this. So if you're not aware of that, that is our Patreon exclusive podcast that we're doing for the War of the Spark Ravnica novel. And if you are a patron at any level, you do gain access to that. So if you haven't been to our Patreon yet, it's patreon.com/atyourendstep. So feel free to join at every level you'd like and take a look at Mike's Book Nook.
I have thoughts and opinions.
Yes, we both do. So let's move on here. We have some community topics we, of course, want to discuss. The first one we're going to talk about is actually there was a banned and restricted announcement that happened on the 20th. And
Yes.
Nothing really got shaken up besides Pauper. And apparently in Pauper, blue is too good. We saw bannings of Gush, Gitaxian Probe, and Days. Now, I think this is 2/3 correct.
2/3 correct. All right, which one do you think is wrong?
I think Days is wrong.
I think you're wrong.
I know I'm not, and you probably want to listen to Mike more than you want to listen to me. I don't play a lot of Pauper, and Mike literally has a Pauper battle chest. So he definitely has more experience with the format. We both can agree though that like Gush and Gitaxian Probe are absurd.
Yeah, agreed.
Like Gitaxian Probe is literally banned in I think every format now. Except Vintage.
Is it banned? I don't know if it's actually banned.
It can't be banned in Vintage. It can only be restricted.
Oh, okay. I guess that you can have banned cards in Vintage, right?
I think the only cards that are banned in
Just
Vintage are
anti-cards?
anti-cards.
Okay, fair
Everything
enough.
else is just restricted.
Okay.
And Gush is absurd. It's banned in Legacy, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's banned in Legacy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's restricted.
it is restricted.
Yeah, it's restricted in Vintage,
So.
and now banned in Pauper. So that makes sense. Days, again, I don't know how powerful the blue decks really are. I don't know if this card is too oppressive in the format, and I really think like this is kind of just raised earth, sort of way of doing this instead of like banning just Gush and Probe and seeing where the format sort of lands after that. I think this is just being overly precautious.
It's possible. I think so. They even mentioned this in the write up for it, but I think like the issue with Days is that like so they wanted to see how foil would work, and
Yeah.
there are so like essentially like they didn't want there to be two free counter spells after seeing it work out. So it was Days or foil. So the other thing is if you look on like Magic Online where Pauper is a format that's played pretty consistently, Pauper has been not firing pretty hard. And a lot of that is some of the, some of it is, Arena and people moving off of Magic Online to some extent. But the other part of it is that some of the blue decks have become super dominant when you look at either the Delver decks or the Inside Out combo decks. Like, it is tough to interact with them, especially when they have so many free spells. I mean, when you look at this, like, you have 2 free draw spells, free counter spells, like, how do you possibly play around all that? So by doing this, it's going to force the blue decks to retool. I think for a little bit, you'll probably, we'll start to see a metagame here in the next few weeks, but, the blue decks that are doing things like blue-black control or even like Tron, like that's probably where the blue is going to settle. You'll still have Delver and you'll still have like Kill and Fiend decks. But losing Gush is a big deal for those decks, and it's going to make them a little bit more fair. So, I think like if we didn't have foil, then I would say yes, you should lose Days too. But I think like if they want to just eliminate free spells for the most part, then I don't mind them doing this.
Fair enough. I do think that I have a Pauper cube, so I've been looking at some of the stuff that's coming out from Modern Horizons. It looks pretty good for my cube, so I imagine that there's got to be some stuff that might break into the actual Pauper format. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely a set that's and not just like stuff that will get into Pauper, but there's also some good Pauper reprints in this set.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like Battle Screech was one that we got.
Yeah, just like difficult to get foils even.
100%.
Yeah, it's so good to kind of see them be able to do that with this set and put both new cards into Modern and actually supply a demand that exists within the Pauper format. So
Right.
pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. I don't know. I like.
If you're the person who these are the only decks of Pauper you played, I'm sorry. The nice thing is that
I don't think it like eradicated them. Like they just changed.
no, like inside out combo still exists. I will say like Gush was a pretty big part of that deck because like
Yeah.
it lets you put more cards in your hand to discard, so it'll have to retool. But the base combo is still there.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Pauper, like you're not losing a ton of money here. Like unless you were foiling out your Gushes, but I don't think those are losing a lot of value anyways.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Next up, we have the Arena MCQ that happened over the weekend. It was a 2-day event. We do have some event guidelines that got released. They're pretty interesting. It was obviously a tournament that felt held together by like duct tape.
yeah.
Which, honestly, if you're going to have something like this on a client that is still very much so in beta, that's what you're going to have. There isn't sort of a way to run the day 2 version of the tournament they wanted to run really naturally. They relied on a third-party host and Discord a lot to kind of organize everything for day 2, because day 2 was a direct challenge sort of
Day
pairing.
one. I thought day one was going to be similar, but I guess they did actually have an event.
You had an event, you had a token that you joined, you played until you lost 2 or won 7, I believe.
I believe it was. Oh, I think you could go all the way up to 8. I think you could go all the way up to 8. So, so the weird thing, I want to talk about that a little bit. So the guidelines talked about how they were going to open up on Saturday the queue hours for that. I think it was started at 9 and it went until whatever. But it talked about how like they encourage players to get into your event and start playing your matches as early as possible, because once you had 2 losses, you were done. And this started happening to people. Once people are out of the tournament, there's less people in the queue for you to play against. So if you started later in the day for some reason, there's a chance you didn't get to play nearly enough matches to actually qualify, which is a weird thing.
They told people, they tweeted this out, that they suggested playing your matches as early as possible to avoid running into that issue, which I agree is like not a thing that you have to think about going into like a typical Magic tournament, even a Magic Online tournament, something like that.
Well, no, because those are actual tournaments,
right? On the flip side of that, there is definitely some people that are like, oh well, I'm done with my tournament today, and it's 2:30.
Yeah, that is true. Like if you got your 2 losses and you didn't have to leave your house and you didn't drive hours to go play in this thing, so.
Right? So it has its pluses and minuses, but it's definitely awkward. I think it's interesting that for the most part they pulled it off, if that makes any sense. Like, we're not threatening to burn down WotC for anything that happened.
Have we ever been close?
No, I'm not saying like us, but like us, the collective us. The community is not like revolting because of this. As far as I know, as far as what I've seen. So we're talking to you, one guy who was considering burning down WotC. We
calm it down.
You clearly weren't loud enough because I didn't hear you. But I think like
burn them all.
I think like that is a small success. Public outrage, not receiving huge public outrage, is a small success for WotC.
For WotC in the last month, yes.
Yes. I don't want to praise them for it necessarily, but
no, there's
it feels less bad than previous things they've done this month.
There's just too many things that are weird about it. Day 2 seemed to be a lot better as far as like at least knowing what you had to do. Because the crazy thing about day 1 is like not only did you have to try and play your matches pretty quickly, but where you finished, you really did not know. Like if you got your 2 losses, you were out, but not necessarily true. Like there were some 5 and 2s who got into the top 128.
Gotcha.
So like
based on like shadow tiebreakers.
Yeah, just shadow tie. Like you can't see those things, and you have to like wait for your email to know, because not a lot of people were like there weren't a lot of 8-0s and things like that. So I mean, like I guess it's cool that you had a chance, but also you just had no idea. And that's weird.
Yeah, I just like the competitive element. Like one of the competitive elements of Magic Arena is literally sweating it out.
Well, and you saw the breakers were too, right? The breakers were like if you had the
Yeah,
same
there were a
breakers,
bunch of different wild
like
ones.
one of the major ones was like the highest rank achieved in Mythic.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
woof. So it was a weird thing. They did some cool stuff with it. They had a new like arena created for it. So like
Yeah.
the play space was like a crowded arena, which was pretty cool. And then yeah, day 2 seemed to go okay. You had to get to 5 wins. You got to 5 wins before you got to 2 losses. You qualified for
Yeah.
it
was
the
16 total
championship.
people
Yes.
that did actually qualify.
So like, Corey Burkhardt, I know, was one of them.
Yeah.
I think she's a streamer, but Banana Fish is another one I saw tweeted out this morning. So like congratulations to all the players that did that. I'm trying to hold on to possibly qualify for the one in July. I think I'm like the 500s right now, and I don't know if I should just sit and wait for 3 days or what. But
Yeah, that's a tough call to make. I gotta make a mad dash here to Mythic because I'm still Diamond, and I really want to hit Mythic again, so I don't like have to start at Gold next season.
I decided to keep playing for packs, and I told Morgan I lost a canister this morning and dropped like 200 slots. I was like, man, like this is not how I want to spend my time.
Yeah, it's tough. Especially like I'm still trying to find like a deck that like feels good. Like I was playing Red, and Red seems to be losing a little bit more than I want it to. So it's like, I played a game with like the 5-color. We'll talk about this in competitive, but the deck that won the Standard Classic, played a little bit with that, lost some mono red, and I'm like, this is just life, isn't it? I don't want to play this deck anymore, and then I lose to it and be like, why cruel life? Why cruel world? Obviously the interesting thing about it is there's a lot of double queuing because of the GP that was happening in Providence.
Yes.
So you had a lot of people in Providence that were like pulling out laptops between rounds, trying to jam some games on Arena, but that was perfectly fine. They said that you were allowed to do that, so you could do the real life double queue.
Yep. And again, I think Burkhart was one of them who
Yes,
managed to qualify.
he
So
He
good
was.
job. I don't know if they day 2 the GP too.
I have no idea. No idea.
I would assume it would be harder to do day 2 of that tournament because like you have to like actually like challenge people and stuff. So
Yes. Yeah. You can't just be like pause and be like, "Hey, we need to battle, but I have to go play."
It's time to duel.
The nice thing is you just find like the person that you're supposed to be paired with, assuming they might be at the GP themselves, and be like, "Hey, are you here?"
Just like, hey, can I borrow the microphone for a second? Well, player name on Arena blank.
This is your direct challenge over the
Come fight me, noob.
Come taste it.
Yeah, are you ready to receive it? Because I'm ready to dish it.
That would have been great.
I mean, now I just want it to be like that.
Yeah. Just like public challenges.
Public challenges. Oh man, okay, I know I'm making like bad Yu-Gi-Oh references, but that was like the storyline of the original cartoon, right?
I never watched Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, I totally did because it was on after school. But like Kaiba, yeah, that Kaiba makes like a city and invites a bunch of people into it, and you just like walk around the city, and like when you run into people, you have to duel them. So that's what this should be.
What if you're just like going to get lunch and you're like, well, I just...
Oh no, they locked you in.
Oh.
You don't get to leave the city.
This wasn't like a vacation.
It might be floating. I don't remember.
I think you're just describing Cloud City, and when Darth Vader ambushes
with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
I know there's like a wizard, a dark wizard,
So like Darth
dark
Vader.
magician.
Darth Vader.
Yes, kind of looks like Darth Vader. This is fair.
Okay. All right. Is Yu-Gi-Oh Star Wars? The world may never. That's a different podcast we don't have actually.
Join us next week for Is Yu-Gi-Oh Star Wars?
It's a critical examination of both Yu-Gi-Oh and Star Wars.
For all the right reasons.
There are no right reasons for that. Only to anger two very easily angerable fan bases.
Yu-Gi-Oh has a fan base?
Ooh, come at us,
this
Yu-Gi-Oh
is my public
fans.
challenge.
Hope you're not a Yu-Gi-Oh fan that lives in Richmond, because, oh man, you don't like us at all.
We just got a strongly worded letter from a Virginia Yu-Gi-Oh player.
We, the members of the Virginia Yu-Gi-Oh Coalition,
Oh God, no! You're never allowed in the state again.
have hereby banned at your end step, and all members, current or former.
All current affiliates.
Good times.
I like it.
Anyway, moving on to our last community topic. It's Modern Horizons. The spoilers they keep on coming on. So we just have a few more cards that we potentially wanted to talk about here. Right off the bat, I kind of want to talk about one we actually just got today on Monday. The what's the day? 26th?
Yes, the
27th. Excuse me.
Yeah,
We done got Yawgmoth.
yeah, we done got Yawgmoth.
We got Dr. Yawgmoth, Thrain Physician. It's just Yawgmoth.
No,
But
it's Dr. Yawgmoth.
I assume, well, it could be Yawgmoth MD. Whatever you want. He went to school, all right. He earned it. He paid money for the doctor, all right. You call him doctor.
They call him Doctor Yog. They call him Dr. Yog.
He is a 2 generic BB for a legendary creature, human cleric. It says protection from humans, so he doesn't make a lot of friends. It says pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. And it says BB, discard a card, proliferate. This card is pretty interesting. We were talking about it amongst our group of Magic friends, and I think Mike and I both agree like this kind of fits a similar slot as like Whirler Rogue in the sideboard of humans. Obviously, protection from humans is pretty significant against that deck. It's not going to be something that is going to be bounced. You still have Dismember that sees play, so you have to still watch out for that, but pop a couple counters on this bad boy, and you don't have to really worry about it being interacted with. Except for now, you do have Deputy of Attention. That is another thing that you have to watch out for.
That is true. That is true.
But obviously, this also turns your kind of derpy creatures into potentially minimizing something, killing something, and cards. Which a lot of time that's how you're losing in humans is by just not being able to draw enough action. You flood out or something like that, and that's why Horizon Canopy is so good in that deck. But yeah, I kind of like it. It's that 4 CMC Mirror Breaker slot is something that is ever rotating. There's a bunch of stuff that's come in and come out of that slot, so I would expect this one to be in there as well. I'm not sure if it's really breaking anything else in the format. This does work well with Thopter Sword. That's another thing to kind of note.
It does work well with Thopter Swords. We talked about it also works with any of the Kitchen Finks combos, because this is a sack outlet for it, and you gain infinite life, and this lets you also draw your deck.
Yes.
So it's another card that we mentioned when we discussed this that those Court of Calling decks aren't really in the format right now. The format's a little it's skewed a little far away from them, but I mean this is the kind of card you want as a one of in that deck more than likely, just to go find sometimes, and that's some gross stuff. So.
I mean, and not to mention today we also got Eldamri's Call as a spoiler, which works well with the toolbox deck.
That's true.
And an instant speed creature tutor in green and white, which those decks are mostly that's typically their base. And you still have things like Kiki Cord and all that stuff. So
yeah, I mean they exist, but just like they're fringe. But cards like this are again they're solid for it. So
yeah, you are you allow those decks to become more consistent, and that's what they're looking for.
Right, sack outlets without mana costs are always important.
Right.
So, I want to mention a couple random. We mentioned popper cards. A card getting a foil that hasn't had a foil, for example, is Crypt Rats. Or I'm sorry, has 1 foil. And
yes,
it's
very expensive.
10th edition or something like that. 7th edition. But also a couple like random like references as well. We have things like Umezawa's Charm.
Yeah.
Which is Umezawa holding his Jit, and it's black and a colorless. And you choose one. Target creature gets +2/+2. Target creature gets -1, or you gain a life. So you get 1 Jit activation.
Yeah.
I've also the art on that of him just smiling. I've seen that being like that guy memes all over the place. We also have Zalfiran Decoy, which is a white and generic for a 1/3 human soldier. Taps our creature. You can only activate this if you had a creature enter the battlefield this turn, which has a Zalfiran sort of knight riding on a zebra corn.
Yes.
There is a card from Tempest called Master Decoy, which had a guy riding a zebra, like a zebra unicorn. So I think it's a pretty sweet little callback there.
I don't. That card to me, I look at it and like it's just so hard for me to evaluate because I don't know why it's uncommon.
Because
Because it's just tap. Because it's you don't have to pay anything to kind of do
Right.
the effect. You have to like. It does require like a creature to enter the battlefield on your side. So like, it feels. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know either. Just in limited, like it's just a 1/3 for 2 that has a pretty relevant ability.
I
So
guess
it's just probably for limited purposes only.
probably.
I don't think it would have been too good in Pauper. I do want to talk about one more sliver. So we mentioned slivers last week. We got Cloud Shredder Sliver, which is a red and a white for a 1/1 creature sliver. Sliver creatures you control have flying and haste. So we were talking about like some of the slivers in the set seem pretty pushed. And this one, geez, I went to a random store this weekend and bought a couple cards, and they had some Gale Rider slivers in one of the binders. And I was like, man, I wonder what this card's up to. And I looked it up on Star City. They're sold out at $12.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy these because
Yeah.
they were less than $12
Right.
bucks. But I was like, man, I look at this one, it's like flying check, but haste too. Like, man, like this card is crazy pushed, and like I think like. I mean, you might be able to build slivers now. Like you might just be able to, like you already could, like slivers already a deck.
Slivers is always like it's always fringe. It is an Aether Bio creature deck, which doesn't have the same axis of attack that humans does.
No, it doesn't have the same disruption. However, because
right.
the abilities attached to them, yeah, there's no reflector mage sliver. There's no
No.
meddling sliver. You meddling slivers. There's no Thalia sliver. But the ones in this set are, I don't know. There's
good.
push here. There's some push.
They're good. There's no the other thing is there's no discard sliver.
That's also true.
There's no crystalline sliver in modern. So
What's the one that there's
there's
one.
diffusion sliver.
Diffusion sliver, yeah, there's a thing.
And diffusion sliver's been legal for since all the other
And it doesn't
newer
really seem
slivers.
to play, yeah.
It's just not. It's not crystalline sliver.
It's not, and I mean, again, I doubt we would because like Shroud is something, or they don't print.
You would
anymore.
get a functional reprint. You would get like
Hexproof sliver.
Yes.
And I don't think it would be 2 mana.
No, that card would be
But again, I wouldn't expect Flying Haste Sliver to be 2 mana. You know what I mean?
no.
So
But giving all your slivers hexproof is a lot.
it is. It really
That's
is.
a lot. I mean, Spirits does a similar thing, right? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you could say like other slivers get. I don't know if that's in the spirit of slivers because that's not what
No,
slivers are. They aren't like they don't bestow abilities to other slivers. They bestow it to all slivers.
right. Well,
They modified them to all slivers you control, which is
Right.
a little bit different now, but thematically, slivers are like, I have it, now everyone has it, because they're just a huge hive mind of
Right.
creatures, so it's hard to be like, well, I don't have it, but you all do?
I don't know.
I'm a teacher sliver?
I'm a teacher sliver. I'm a mentor sliver.
Yes.
Last thing I want to at least talk about is I want to mention we've gotten 2 new swords.
Yep.
Swords of Truth and Justice and Sword of Sinew and Steel. Truth and Justice is so these are 3 mana. They have 2 equip costs.
Right.
They give +2/+2 and they give protection from colors. So
Yeah, we already have an enemy cycle of
Right.
them. And
So
this is the ally cycle.
Truth and Justice is blue-white. Sinew and Steel is black and red.
Sad that, as many people are, that it's not the sort of Law and Order.
Right.
Dun dun. But, I understand legal things. I don't know, I don't know. A Law and Order, they definitely both feel like, white things. They don't feel like blue things
That's
at
true.
all.
That's
So
I mean, Truth, I guess, is the blue thing.
Truth is the blue thing, yes.
So, Truth and Justice says whenever a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. Sword of Sinew and Steel says whenever a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. These are both interesting to me. Swords have not really been playable in Constructed since you could play them with Stoneforge Mystic. And even then, like
There were some times where you could play them and play some of them in Abzan builds.
Sure, in Modern,
Yeah,
like it's been a while.
I remember playing it in Abzan and playing the black and white one.
Okay,
because it's just grindy.
Sure. And neither of these scream like modern powerful to me. Like proliferate is interesting, but that's a casual thing. And Sinew and Steel, when it says up to destroy a planeswalker, if they have a planeswalker in play, then you were able to hit them with a sword, right? Then how much was that planeswalker doing? Hopefully it was Narset. Maybe that was the valuable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't. I don't see these seeing play.
No, the best part about these swords are the protection, right?
That is true.
Like the best part of Sword and Sinew and
Waking
Steel is like black red protection is like cool, good job. Like you're not gonna like depending on what you're playing, like you're probably not gonna be able to kill this
Yeah,
anymore.
but you have to like still equip it. Like that's always the problem with these swords. Is you always have to have a window to equip it.
But I think like you hit the nail on the head when you're like swords just haven't been playable in a very long time.
Yeah, and it's where we're at with it. I do say go ahead.
And then like the best sword is still like if you're gonna play a sword is Fire and Ice. Like
Yeah,
that's all
it
you're gonna
is.
play.
I will say the art on these, Chris Ron continues to do a
Yep.
great job with them, and he confirmed that at least Truth and Justice is on Dominaria, which is interesting because
I think they're both on Dominaria.
They probably are, but like I'm saying, just like all 5 of the other ones were on
Mirrodin.
So I would
clearly, a
assume maybe all 5 of
Planeswalker made these swords. He made 5 of them on Mirrodin. Planes walked away and was like, "I'm gonna go go to Dominaria, make 5 more."
In my mind, the Dominaria ones would be first, but
Maybe
I don't know.
maybe Karn made 5 swords and was like, "All right, gonna gonna saddle these up, take it with me to my new plane that I made."
One for you and one for you. And oh man, it would make sense if he was the one who made all the swords because they have protection from colors he's not. Because who else could make swords that had protection from all the colors? Like I can't touch it. So, but we're gonna get more this week. Do we get the rest of the set this week?
I think so.
Okay. How you feel about Modern Horizons now? We have the bulk of the cards. We should mention quickly we did get the other Planeswalker.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Ren and
Ren and
6. The Tree Gundam.
It's a green and a red for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. I think it's interesting. It's called Ren and 6, and it seems to be 2 distinct beings in one.
Yeah, Ren is the man, and 6 is the tree man.
But when it says Legendary Planeswalker, it just says Ren because they can't fit
Correct.
Ren and 6.
6 is just like it's a mech. It is think of it as a mech. Like it's called 6 because it is the 6th of that.
Not sentient.
I don't believe so.
Interesting. That's cool to hear.
I mean, I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't think so.
We'll probably get more from him. He's in a couple of art too, like a couple of different.
Yes,
things.
he is the
Planebound Accomplice.
Yes, that is who that human is summoning.
So this is 3 loyalty. It has 3 abilities. +1, return up to 1 target land card from your graveyard to your hand. -1, it deals 1 damage to any target. -7, you get an emblem with instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard have retrace. So 2-mana Planeswalker seems pretty relevant in Modern and in Legacy because if you play a fetch land to cast this, then you can immediately tick it up and get a fetch land back. So your Planeswalker is essentially a 2-mana Crucible of Worlds. -1 to be able to hit a target is pretty relevant because you could hit Noble Hierarchs or things like that in those early turns. It's -7 seems to make no actual like connection with the rest of the card, but it's powerful. I mean, like whatever. But you're playing this because you want a 2-mana thing that returns lands.
I mean, Retrace is good with a first ability.
It is. It is.
I mean, it's supposed to be land graveyard centric.
Right,
Like
that makes sense.
it's loam. Okay,
That
this
makes
is
sense.
loam
Yeah,
centric.
that's
This is why this card exists. It goes, we want a lands-esque strategy to potentially be viable later on in Modern, and this is how they do that. Whether that's aggro loam or seismic assault or what have you, or bearsmic assault if that's your new jam. If you just want to make bears with your lands. But that's what this card is. I think it's cool. I think, this kind of shows me that they feel that they will not be experimenting with 2-mana Planeswalkers in Standard. Because if something similar to this power level was like put into Standard, it would probably be too good, in my opinion.
Yes and no. Like, I agree.
This
but
is very narrow, but I feel like if the archetype that, like, let's say there was this kind of strategy within Standard currently, and you printed this, like, I think it'd be too good.
I don't disagree, but I think without fetch lands, this card goes way down in its power level. Like, you actively have to do a fair amount of work in Standard to get the +1 to do anything. Like, you have Evolving Wilds, you have Field of Ruin, which takes some time, and then you're trying to mill yourself.
Right, but I mean, like, this is with the conceit that there is a way that this is, like, there is a way to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if fetch lands are just in Standard, then you're almost dealing with Modern anyways. We found out the last time.
Yeah.
Then
But
I think
let's say like cycling land, like we have
Sure.
the land cyclers from Amonkhet, like as part of it.
definitely would have been good. I think this is a very push 2-mana planeswalker. Like it is
Yes.
just good because of the fact that it's going to go up essentially to 4 loyalty when you put it down, so it's going to be out of bolt
Bolt
range.
range.
Like it's just going to draw a bunch of cards. You know, it's a red green card that's going to draw a bunch of cards. Those cards are going to be lands, but you're still drawing them. So I think it's going to see play in probably both formats. I don't know what modern deck it goes into right now, but in Legacy, like Legacy Lands wants this card. I
Yeah,
think.
it's still heavily rumored that we're going to get the onslaught cycle lands. The
Do they still fit number crunch wise?
yes,
Oh,
we
interesting.
still do, but also fits number crunch wise, which I hope we don't get is the stupid slow fetches.
Ugh.
I don't want the wizards. All right, if you, I know this is already at the printers. I know you already have boxes of this in a warehouse. Don't print the slow fetches. All right, don't crack open all the packs that have slow fetches in them. Replace them with the cycle lands, and you'll have a much better product.
In the rare slot. I don't even care.
Just I don't. Yeah, just don't.
Oh god, those wouldn't be rare slot cards. Would they be uncommon, right?
What, the cycle lands?
Yeah. No, the slow fetches.
Oh, slow fetches aren't common.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no way those are not rare. All right, those are
think,
bad.
I think the cycle lands would be at uncommon too.
Yeah, that's probably fair, but I don't really care if they've already been printed at common, so it's not like you're
right.
But print those. Those are way better and way more impactful to modern. They have the way more potential than the stupid like slow fetches. Don't make people play with slow fetches.
Yeah, I will say they I would like the cycle lands, and like that's the one thing that would make like the Astral Slide variant possible. But man, those cards are real good in Dredge. You got to be careful. Those cards are real good in Dredge.
You know what? Ban something in Dredge.
They have.
Do it again. Keep doing it.
Dredge won the Open.
I know. It's because everyone forgot about Dredge, and they're like, "Oh, Dredge."
I hate you.
Oh, Dredge, I forgot. My Graph Digger's cages.
But so anyway, so what are your thoughts so far though? Like, how do you feel about Modern Horizons?
That's all right. I did want to talk about one card, one last card, because we got a new Mox.
I thought we mentioned that last week.
Did we? The Mox Tanzanite?
I thought we did because we had it right at the beginning of the show.
Okay, that's right. Okay, never mind then. I still think that we still have more of the set to go. It did get a little bit better, in my opinion. I think it got a little bit better. There's a little bit more here for Modern. It still is obviously going to be hurt by its name. It's not going to be. It is still up in the air if War of the Spark is going to be more impactful than Modern Horizons, which is interesting, right? Like that is a disappointing thing to kind of look at and be like, why is War of the Spark $3 a pack, $4 a pack, and this is going to be probably $7 still,
Right.
So like that is finance wise, like that's a hard thing to come to terms with. I do think that a lot of these cards are going to change the format. And I just think like Modern is going to be in a it's going to be in a real flux because of War of the Spark and because of Modern Horizons after that. I'm not disappointed in it at this point. I like the callbacks, even if that's blatantly what they are. That's fine. It's not the end of the world, and a lot of what people enjoy in a lot of things they consume is nostalgia and callbacks and things like that. And I'm a man that appreciates that, so I'm not gonna like hold that against them, even if it is pretty out there on Front Street. Some of the cards to me don't make much sense at their rarities and why they're doing that, and some of the cards I think could be printed in Standard just fine. And I think it's all right. I wish they would have named it something different and just said it was going to be Modern Legal. I wish they had come up with call it like Time Warp or something like that, and we could all do the Time Warp again
when they released Time Warp 2. Yeah,
right.
I get it.
And just was like, hey, this is going to be a supplemental set, but we're trying something different. It's going to be Modern Legal, and not focus so hard on these cards being like that being that trying to make your selling point that, because then people want something that's going to be big and impactful to Modern, and when it isn't, they get disappointed. But if this was just a supplemental set that was legal in Modern, then it's still just a supplemental set. I think then you do have to sell it for $4.99, for $3.99 though.
But yeah, that's where they get away with it.
So it's tough. It's tough, and I hope that in the end this isn't just us getting gouged, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
I think we're getting gouged, but they can do what they want, and technically there's not MSRP or whatever. But like, this set, had they just said this is this was a supplemental set, like you said, it's like conspiracy, it's whatever else, then yeah, we wouldn't have to worry about this. And I don't know why like, this isn't a master set, but we're gonna pretend like it should be premiumly priced. I don't know. I agree. It's named poorly. WotC keeps going with this approach of let's try to make everybody happy. With these sets, which is one of the issues with things like Masters 25 and Iconic Masters, and why they kind of had to stop the Master sets, as good as Ultimate Masters was. So I don't know. We are getting a little bit more. We still have this week of of spoilers, things like Latimer's Call. That's a late get that I think is pretty powerful for Modern. So we'll see. We'll see how much of an impact it has. Some of the mythics have a chance to be. Something like Urza has a chance to define archetypes. But I guess the one thing I'm still not seeing in this set that I would have really wanted to see is I don't know where, and it could just be missing it. I'm not some like I don't know all the decks. I'm not a master deck builder, but I don't know where the new archetype is. Something that tells me I want to go build something new and exciting. And I know they weren't trying to break Modern, so maybe they were afraid to do that. But like most of these things seems to supplement, like, oh, this goes in Whir, or this goes in this, or this goes in the lands, or this go. But like, where's the card that says, ooh, I'm gonna build around this card? Maybe it's Red and 6. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me,
and I still think the card needs more support to be viable.
It certainly does. And I just right now I don't see it. Like, yeah, but is it Bearsmic Assault? Like, I doubt it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, because like in. You look at War of the Spark, for example, like Neoform literally said, here's a new archetype. You know what I mean? Here's a deck. Allosaurus Rider wasn't seeing play before that, but I don't know what to tell you.
So,
and that's one example, but like Karn is creating like literally like subsets of decks that are just like Karn decks, right? Like where, I guess I want to know what cards in Modern Horizons are going to do that. And again, if they didn't design the set to do that, that's fine. But it's hard to get past like, here's what we called this set, and then be like, here's what it is. So
I agree.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to buy some. There's cards out of this I want for sure. Obviously the Horizon lands or Canopy lands or whatever we're calling them. The Owl, I drew a card lands, whatever floats your boat. But I do think like, just the way that my mind works, there's just like some issues with me for like naming it and seeing what it is, and then seeing what having a hard time seeing what the goal was. I don't know what the goal was.
Yeah,
because it does seem different from what they professed.
I think with the article that they released, I don't know what people have said. Like, that's the thing. Like, people talked about the set. It was announced on Weekly MTG, so I don't know what people said their intent was. Because I haven't gone there and watched the announcement, everything like that. I know that the article that was the announcement article, they wanted to specifically focus on. Reprinting, putting cards into Modern directly, which they are doing just by printing cards and celebrating Magic's history, which they're also doing. If those are their only goals, then they are achieving those goals. I don't know what achieves the goal of this being a not suggested retail price of $6.99 because there's no more MSRP on product, which is that's a chin stroke right there. Like, okay, all right, but I think it's rough if you're looking at this and looking at paying somewhere around like $250 for a box of this.
Right.
If you get that Flusterstorm, like, you make some money back, obviously, but look for good prices for this if you're going to buy sealed product for it or buy singles.
It is important to remember that you get compared to other premium sets, you are getting 36 packs here.
You are.
You're not getting the 24.
But that's the same for exploratory sets, because
right.
Master sets 24.
But you're not getting a foil per pack, right? Like a
no.
Masters. Yeah. So again, like I don't know where because that was always part of the premium too for the sets. So it's whatever, they can charge what they want, I guess. But it just, all of it seems like this mishmash where like, and they want us to just be like, see, and I go, yeah, like I'm excited about some of these things. Like I get what you're doing, but like
callbacks don't make cards more expensive. Like,
correct.
Period.
Correct.
I appreciate the callbacks.
Zebracorns don't make cards more expensive.
No, callbacks are cool. I like them. But They don't make cards more expensive. Right. And if this is just going to be a set that is like a mythic lottery with some big hits and some real big misses, then that's disappointing. So I hope it's not that. I want more support. I think I'm most disappointed by the uncommons. If that's where I'm going to center my disappointment with it right now, is the uncommons. If you look at Modern, there are a lot of really, really powerful uncommons that exist within the format that are sort of like the backbone of a lot of what Modern does. And I don't see a lot of it. A lot of the Modern impacting cards, to be honest, are rare. Right. Or mythic rare. Well, and that's not what that's not true for the format that I know. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, let's even look at the mythics real quick. Like, so Sarah the Benevolent, Modern staple.
The Sarah could be like that card that jumpstarts black white tokens. You know what I mean?
Maybe it could. I think like the best argument I've seen for Sarah is like if you were a deck that was trying to run worship, you're just going to run worship because this is worse worship. You know what I mean? Like, if you get it off, that's great, but it's conditional, so they could just kill the Sarah. Ranger Captain of Eos. I would think maybe at least a staple in humans.
Yeah. You're playing 2 or 3.
Urzulor High Artificer. I would say this is going to be a card I call staple. Yawgmoth Thran Physician.
Sideboard humans card.
Sideboard, I don't think it's going to be a staple by any means. Seasoned Pyromancer. Could be a staple.
I think so.
The weird... I don't know what this one is.
The Snake.
Hex Drinker. No.
Yeah, I don't know who wants that card.
Unbound Flourishing.
Cool commander card.
Yeah, cool commander. Like so right now, just looking at that, we are looking at 1, 2, 3 that we're saying yes, these are going to definitely see play. A 4th seeing Fringe sideboard play, and the other ones being okay. So like, and like, again, like you shouldn't judge a whole set by its mythics.
No.
But like if I'm looking at Modern Horizons, I'm thinking every mythic is going to be something that's going to do. Like
you want it to be right, like that's what you're trying to sell me on.
But I think like when I look at a card like Hex Drinker, which we haven't really talked about, but Hex Drinker is a leveling card, so it's a 1/1 snake for 1.
It's 2. It's a 2/1.
A 2/1. Sorry, 2/1 snake for 1. Sorry, I was looking at the thing. It's 1 generic to level it. Levels 3 through 7, it becomes a 4/4, and it has protection from instants. At levels 8 and up, it's a 6/6 with protection from everything. It's a mythic because it has the line protection from everything, the old Progenitus line on it. When you look at the card in comparison, though, the card that it actually compares to is Figure of Destiny, which is a better card for multiple reasons, specifically because your mana investment is instant, so you can't just get blown. You can play and not get blown out by the leveling. But 2, it becomes a flyer at the end, or it becomes bigger at the end. Is it still 6/6 or is it 8/8? I think it's an 8/8, right? It goes 4/4, 8/8.
Maybe.
I'll have to look at that. And it's also like a hybrid creature, whereas this is like you have to play green and then it's generic after that.
Yeah.
And that's a rare that doesn't see play in Modern.
Also, you can activate
that is
Figure. It is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I said. It's an instant. You can't. So Figure sees 0 play in Modern. Why is this a mythic?
I hate this
card. Because it says protection from everything.
I hate this card.
But I think like that's the logic in printing that we're seeing here with this. And it's supposed to just be like, well, it's a mythic because of this. And it's like, that's fine. But like, what's the set for then? Why am I paying $8 to open this in a pack?
I don't know.
And maybe that makes me sound more annoyed by the set than I am. I'm not. I'm glad we're getting it. I'm glad to see them pushing this way. But, man, I want more thoughtful looks into Modern as opposed to just like, let's see what cool things we can do.
Yeah, I hate Hex Drinker because it is not flavorful, and it's not good. So, like, why is this card here? Like, what hole are you trying to fill in the set? Like, you're not making an homage to something. You're not celebrating Magic's history. Yeah. Like, I don't care that it says protection from everything. Like, whatever. People play Progenitus because you cheated into play,
right? Not because of any other reason.
Yeah, that's why you're not like, oh, cool, I got my 10 mana. I'm gonna cast my Progenitus. Like, if you're doing that, congratulations, I guess. I don't know why you're doing that. You are cheating into play somehow. Like, that's what you're doing with that card, and that's why that card exists, and people like it.
You can cheat this one into play too, but it would require you to actually cheat.
Yeah, correct. How did that get 8 counters on it? I don't know. It's level 8 now, though.
I Progenised it.
But it's got protection.
That word is hard to make into a verb. I need you to understand.
And it's got protection from everything, even cheating. So don't worry about it.
I just feel so weird because like I feel like you and I both are like don't hate this set by any stretch.
No,
and like I think
just
like
hate parts of it.
yeah, I just and again like had it been named something else, and I think maybe some more quibbling goes away. But I don't know what it is. There's just something about the set that doesn't feel right. And like maybe it's I've seen like a lot of the people who designed this set are like being super excited about it, and I'm happy for them. But then I see things like I see Tom Ross tweeting about the red free spell, which is Force of Rage. 1 red for an instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a red card from your hand rather than pay its mana cost. Create 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with trample and haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of your next upkeep. So it's Ball Lightning, which is unplayable, meaning we essentially got 2 Ball Lightnings in this set, and then you could play it on. You could exile a card to play it on their turn, and he even said like, well, it's defensive. That way you can block with them. That's what our red free spell gets, is the chance to block. Like what? Who again? Tell me what we're solving there. What hole did you just fill with this? Like why? Why does every other free spell seem to have some weird application, and then Force of Rage is like, I don't know, Ball Lightning. 2 of them though, tiny ones, Hellspark Elementals. It's stuff like that where it's like I want to look at good cards, but when I open Force of Rage, that's gonna be me. I'm gonna Force of Rage.
So here's the thing. The red force was either going to be too broken or not playable, in my opinion.
I guess. I mean,
because this is a design problem with red, and we all know it. We all see it. Like red is so narrow with the things that it does and how it interacts with what these are trying to interact with, right?
Right.
Like they're trying to interact with broken things that exist within modern to some degree.
Okay, but then why? Let me ask you this: there's so many creature-based combos, right?
Right.
Look at what these other cards are trying to do, right? Blue gets to negate.
Yes.
Green gets to destroy our enchantments.
Right.
Why isn't it just like combust?
So,
why isn't it just like you can pitch a red card in your hand to deal 4 damage to a creature or a planeswalker? Like why
the
isn't
planeswalker is an interesting thing. I think
why not let it just interact with your opponent doing something broken on their turn? Like that's the whole point of these. That's why you design them this way. This doesn't do that.
I think creatures and planeswalkers would have been the way to go.
It could have been Fire Blast for creatures or planeswalkers only, and it would have been beautiful. And I don't get it, because how does this do anything?
It doesn't do anything. I do think the card that you are describing is at very least like playable, like
it's at least playable.
Considerable.
It's at
like
least playable.
You would consider it to be playing. I don't know. I still don't know if that's
because
good
you could
enough.
turn on, like you could interact with like the core decks when you're tapped out or something. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. And then I'm not. Tom Ross is a great player, and I'm sure he had a fun time with designing this, and he's answering the question about the card. But I would love to have a chance to just go, what do you mean defensive? Why is this our force?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And like you can't end a turn it so you can untap and attack with them. They get sacked at your upkeep. Like
right.
it was designed for something they specifically envisioned, but it's not something that's happening in modern.
No.
So I don't know what that means.
No.
I don't know. Okay, I think we should end this for now until we have the whole set. But I think that's where some of my frustration lies with individual cards like this, where it just seems, or like Hex Drinker, like you just said, like where you look at it and you go, but you could have put something here that did something.
I wish they were colorless elementals, so you at least could block a core Firewalker when they attacked with it.
Right? Yeah. No. Or core Firewalker, or what's the other one? The 1/1. Yeah. That would have at least been relevant. Absolutely.
Got him.
I know this is really, really random, super random. I want you to think. I've been playing Mono Red Phoenix to test for the Open.
Yeah.
I've been playing Heliorize. Definitely got my human's opponent to attack my Seal Heliori with an Auric Champion.
Oh no!
And I cast a spell.
Oh, they met up.
And I blocked with a servo, and they were just there was a moment where we just sat there with the timer going down, and I was like, "Yeah, it's colorless." My mono red deck killed an Auric Champion.
That's good.
So
That's good.
Scoreboard, baby.
All right. Well, I think we've gone on long enough about Modern Horizons. So hopefully, once we get the whole picture, we'll get the whole picture, and then we'll kind of go over what we feel about it. Talk about some more cards, probably.
Rage mostly.
I'm doubtful, but
no, it's not rage, but like I don't know. I think we got tastes of cards too, like the Ice Vein Codal we talked about, but like are we going to get enough more snow permanents to make that a deck, or is that just like we
Well-
almost printed Baleful Strix, but
When
I
we-
know in the spring, in the fall. I get it. When winter comes.
when winter comes, we'll be fine.
TV shows taught me anything. Winter never comes.
That's true. Just like it's there for like a hot second,
Like
and then it's like, oh,
mildly chilly.
it's spring again. All right. So before we jump into the competitive segment, I did want to give a quick shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. They're going to be holding their MCQ on Saturday, June 15th. It's going to be $45. Pre-registration is open. There's only 200 slots.
There's only 199 slots because I am pre-registered.
I'm pre-registered too. So there's
198 slots.
So if you are interested in attending, it's going to be standard. So make sure you pre-register, get your slot guaranteed, and come down to the MCQ. All right, competitive. We did have GP Providence. It was team limited, and we're not going to talk about it. Next, though, we do have SCG Louisville.
What?
SCG Louisville.
What?
SCG Louisville.
Louisville.
Hard S. It was a Modern Open, and it also had a Standard and Modern Classic. We're going to be talking about the Modern Open here first. It was won by Oliver Tomachko, playing Dredge, defeating Drake Sasser, playing Is it Phoenix?
Which is, what a flavorful name to play Is it Phoenix.
I know, right? We also have Titan Shift, another Dredge, Amulet Titan, and two Humans decks, and then an Azorius Control deck finishing out the top 8. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the winning list?
Yeah, let's take a look at Dredge. We had 2 copies of Dredge in the top 8. I think both of these are pretty standard. I do want to at least mention one card that's seeing some play, which this one has. Tomashko's has it in the sideboard. Connor Mullally's has it in the main, which is Blast Zone.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because like colorless lands are actually pretty bad for this deck. Like it's pretty color intensive, but the Life from the Loam package allows you to just like if you have Blast Zone early, you just pitch it. Most of the time, you're just going to dredge it out of your deck, and then if there's a moment where you need Blast Zone, you can just loam it. It's mana intensive. It takes some time, but like I'm thinking about like some grindier matches, or even like some matches against I think something like a Death Shadow, or even like Humans, where just blowing it at 1 may be relevant enough to buy you time.
Yeah.
I think it is a pretty low impact, and I say low impact. Tomashko, like I said, put it in the sideboard as opposed to the main, so it not no impact because it does affect your mana. Anytime you put a colorless source in your deck that is so intensive on needing like red early on, plus any other colors to cast spells.
Right, like you're only playing 19 lands,
right?
So it's not always guaranteed that you're not constantly taking draw steps either. Like
exactly.
you're dredging stuff. Like you're not always guaranteed to. You really need red green. Green is like the unlocks the kind of the door so you can cast Loam.
So it affects like your mulligan decisions, a non 0%, but it is a fairly low impact to your deck to have access to a pretty powerful card. Now I will say the reason that Tomashko has his in the sideboard is he's playing a Ghost Quarter in the main. So there's that. But I think like when we look at that, that's the major difference. I will also say though that they're cutting down. Like he only had 2 copies. Connor Mullally had no copies of Leyline of the Void. So even though Is It Phoenix finished in second, we see the format maybe shifting a little bit further back because it's really hard to play all these ley lines and all these main deck surgicals when Humans is again one of the best decks in the format. Like, please have main deck surgicals against Humans. Like, please have a ton of ley lines. Ley lines?
Whoa, I don't know what those are.
For Humans. Ley lines taking up your sideboard slots when you have a high chance of playing Humans each round. So I like seeing the format shift back against what we saw from the Mythic Championship.
And Dredge for a long time has just been on 2 ley lines because they frequently mulligan anyway. So it's like
right, what are you gonna do? But like Mullally having none.
Yeah, that is a change. So, that is a metagame choice, especially if like you are playing Dredge and you don't expect other people to be on Dredge.
Right.
Yeah. Drake Sasser with Is It Phoenix here in second place.
So a little bit going back a little bit of an older build. Playing only 2 Pyromancer Ascension and back on 2 Crackling Drakes. It does have 2 copies of a card though I think is pretty sweet. Finale of Promise.
Yes, it's good in the standard version of this deck. And it's good for the similar reasons.
It's good in the standard version of the deck. It is also a liability in standard.
Sure.
Just having a person who's played that matchup a ton now, that card is unplayable when there's Teferis in play.
That is true.
So, and most people don't know that until the first time they do it. Because I definitely had opponents twice now, just be like, Finale, I promise. And I was like, yep. And they just sit there as their little timers go, it's like, you can't cast them. But in here, I've been testing one copy in Mono Red Phoenix, and like when it is good, it is very, very good.
Yeah.
You're getting to, hey, I'll bolt this and I'll recast my Sleight of Hand or Serum Visions or whatever else. Or just being able to go Serum Visions and like Thought Scour and just getting a couple fresh looks at a card, and it's 3 spells.
Yeah.
So like it brings back all your Phoenixes.
Right. It's important to note that Sleight of Hand kind of got a little bit of a bump because of Narset, right?
That is true.
Because
it doesn't say draw a card.
Correct. It says you pick one, put it in your hand. And obviously, we still see Serum Visions and all the other stuff, but it's just like if you were on the fence of whether to include Sleight of Hands or not in your build or something like that, this will, Narset kind of puts you over on that.
And we'll talk about it here in a second, but like Narset is in the main deck of at least one of the decks in the top 8. So
yes,
Narset's seeing the play. As far as this, also notice here that Drake Sasser has no copies of Surgicals in his main. Has a couple in the sideboard, or 3 in the sideboard, I should say. But again, I think you're seeing the format shift a little bit away from that.
Right, you're moving back to
number 1 played card.
Yeah, you're moving back to gut shot because of humans.
Right.
I just noticed that both Oliver's deck and Drake's deck here have Alpine Moons in the sideboard.
That is another interesting one.
And I saw a lot of Alpine Moons in sideboards this weekend, and I don't know why that shift is happening.
Well, so like for a deck like Dredge or even like Izzet Phoenix can and does, but Dredge can't play Blood Moon, but needs to be able to interact with the Tron decks.
Sure.
So
but
Alpine Moon
we
makes
see it
sense.
here in Izzet Phoenix. We have both Blood Moon and Alpine Moon, so I have to.
It's a mana cost thing. That has been a pretty common cut, just to be like, hey, I need one, because they don't have a way to speed out a Blood Moon, so you can already be behind the 8 ball when the Blood Moon resolves. So you want at least one access to something a little bit lower,
just to further set yourself right with the Tron matchup.
And just again have a chance to go underneath it.
Yeah. Okay.
So. It can also do some it's also not a bad card to bring in against I know we have Titan Shift here, but also like Amulet, because you can just name their first bounce land or something, like their Karoo, just to take them off the land. You can do some different things with that deck against that deck depending on what they have in play versus just Blood Moon 2 and get it down earlier than Blood Moon. It's really just getting it underneath where you would normally have Blood Moon at.
Yeah.
So anything cool in Titan Shift? There's a Chandra. Ooh, copies of Invali Acid Moss.
Yeah, out of the sideboard.
2 in the main, man.
Oh, 2 in the main.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if he had him in the main. I saw him play a couple of matches. This Time Shift player, Samuel Thompson, was he was the last undefeated player. He went 10-0 or something like that before actually getting his first loss. So Time Shift is just one of those decks that. It's straightforward. It kind of always does the same thing. And if it's something that is, a deck that can have a similar speed to an Amulet Titan and still be able to win consistently over them, which is really nice.
It doesn't have the turn 3 or 4 craziness that Amulet Titan can have, but on a regular draw, this is that. And again, it just interacts a little bit differently. It also doesn't have the weird Blood Moon against Amulet has a tendency to turn them off of everything. They can't cast that, and they also can't use their pacts. But here, this deck still just operates and still just attacks you with, they have forests. they're going to attack you.
And let's say against your lands decks, you were trying to do a dampening sphere. This deck doesn't really care about dampening sphere.
It really doesn't.
It can, if it has to, it can typically pay the 7 for
Correct.
It's spell plus a Titan or something like that. It's fine, and it's a deck that can play Dampening Sphere out of its sideboard as well, which is nice. But this is probably one of the cheapest decks in Modern currently. It's currently according to MTG Goldfish $630. It's respectable.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I mean, Dredge is also coming in pretty low as well for certain versions, depending on what you're playing. But yeah. We of course have Matthew Dilks here playing Amulet Titan, as he is very well known for.
Playing our Boreal Grazer.
Playing the one of a Boreal Grazer. War the Spark. Just giant making impacts in Modern right here.
It's funny you mentioned that because he's still playing Hive Minds, but there's been a number of Amulet decks that have gone to the Karn the Great Creator package instead.
Yeah, the lovingly nicknamed Microsoft Lettuce sideboard plan. I know that he had or Cedric had talked to him and said that he just didn't like that package.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In particular, so yeah, there are a lot of decks that are just like I'm just gonna put this in here, like because it just makes you win.
Yeah.
Like it's just a 2-card combo that's like cool. I'm winning. Whether that's Tron or Amulet Titan, the big mana decks, but some decks that aren't necessarily trying to do that just have that backup plan, which is kind of interesting.
You got a Rurikthar on the sideboard.
Yeah. A character criminally missing from War of the Spark.
Not
I
wrong.
Say. Criminally missing. He is in the book, right? I can't remember.
If so, he's only very.
It might just be a mention. I mean, like it's him. I know
Borborygmos is but
definitely in there.
Rurikthar
Also,
believe.
criminally missing is the legend that they talked about. Nikki of the Old Ways. I know she's on like flavor text, but she's not. Okay, all right, cool. Wasi, get yourself right. That's all I'm saying. Get yourself right. You killed off the Gruul clan leader.
Save it for the book nook, man.
I'm sorry.
No, it's we know that's true. Yeah, they mentioned how like all the clans are like clashing, like a clash of clans, if you will.
Oh, it's a popular game.
Yeah. But they really don't go into it otherwise. So sorry.
Man, they got done dirty.
Yeah, they
got done dirty. Not saying like Domri didn't make his fair share of mistakes in that novel. It definitely got what he pretty much deserved. But come on, Gruul's cool. All right, so like
it's cool to be Gruul, man.
It's cool to be Gruul.
Be Gruul to your school.
You got to be Gruul to be kind. If you want to hear. Anyway, I have a couple of humans list here. One piloted by Noah Strassler. And yeah, nothing really groundbreaking in these lists. I don't think we'll see anything truly, a shift in how these decks look until we get Modern Horizons, where there's a couple new cards that they will definitely be playing. We also have Liam Daly here, and really, you just take a look at some of these flex spots, which are like the Militia Bugler, Deputy of Detention. It's really kind of whatever. Sometimes you see the 3-mana Thalia, so it's kind of whatever you want to play in that 3-mana slot. I think that's going to be taken over though by the Night Ranger.
It's very possible,
or the Ranger Captain. I don't know. He's got so many titles.
The Night Rider.
The Night Rider. I think Night Ranger is a 80s hair metal band.
Night Ranger is.
Yeah, Night Ranger. That's what I said.
Yeah, Night Ranger is. Yeah.
Whatever. Ranger Captain. There we go.
Now I want to look up Night Ranger.
Just out. So I think like we're kind of burying the lead here because we have Azorius Control, and I think Azorius Control is like the most War of the Spark cards kind of represented right up front, because we have three Narset and 2 Baby Teferi showing up. Don't play Night Ranger on the podcast. They'll come after us.
But
we'll get a cease and desist.
But we have fair use for 30 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Come on, they did Sister Christian. Oh man, it's so good.
But yeah, so we have 5 Planeswalkers right off the bat here, kind of showing up. We also have Dovin's Vetoes in the spell listing here. But yeah, lots of stuff coming into this deck to kind of shake it up a little bit and make it a little bit more viable as a strategy. I know the blue-white was a pretty popular choice for a lot of people going into this tournament.
Yeah, Roger Bodie is he's a fairly local guy too. We know him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these lists are certainly interesting. The 3-mana planeswalkers give these decks, and the planeswalker like lists vary. Like some have Jaces and the Mind Sculptor obviously and things like that. But the 3-mana planeswalkers give these decks a lot more game than they had before. Some permanents to occupy the battlefield to do things. Just like myself again, testing Mono Red Phoenix. Like Narset's a problem. Like Narset's a real problem, and it is tough to prepare for that. So, Blue Eye Control still has the same problems it had before, namely big lands decks. Like it doesn't really do so well against those decks. But, it definitely gained points against. I don't know, just gained. It gained a lot of points against a lot of decks. So if you already are the kind of person that likes those kind of decks, it's also impressive how like Narset just randomly beats up on things like Blue Red Phoenix. Like, oh boy, it can beat up on things even like Dredge, just because like if they're trying to like fire off the flashback Faithless Lootings and things like that, like it's not very and they can't interact with Narset very well. So it's interesting place for this deck right now.
For sure. I was just looking at some of the like cards of this deck, and I was like, it's surprisingly like it's sub a grand. And when you see a modern deck and it be sub a grand, you're like, oh well, it's not cheap, but it's approachable. You know what I mean? And I looked at it, I was like, man, that printing of Celestial Colonnade really hit that card hard. It's like $15 now.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm no finance guru, but buy Celestial Colonnades. Like that's probably just a slam dunk. To be honest, $15, snap it off.
Yeah, it's probably true.
But don't I don't take
don't like actually
advice. Don't take advice from me. I'm not a financial advisor in any way, shape, or form. Don't sue me if you invest your fortune in Celestial Colonnades and you don't see dividends. I don't know what are the disclaimers. Don't sue me. I know it's an American way and all that jazz, but I think you like me, at least as a host of this podcast.
I'd like to buy 10 stocks, please. Okay, and what are you paying with? Celestial Colonnades? Don't make me keep telling you. They may have value.
Get out.
They're not money. But I turned all my money into these. Morgan told me to.
I just want to buy my groceries.
Can I trade this for some soup?
Is this good for soup?
My house is now made of these. It's very cold.
I reshingled my roof with them. It's very wet.
It rained, and I forgot about rain, and I lost everything.
The Colonnades, they did nothing.
Oh, man.
Anything else showing up here in...
Let's see. We have Kazushiro playing Storm. Because
he went back
to
Storm.
Of course he is. He's very good at that.
After a few tournaments playing as at Phoenix, he decided to come back to Bay.
How about Dominic Harvey's Orio's Vengeance?
Heck yes. So we kind of talked about Ilrog kind of being a pseudo sneak attack, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what this deck is doing. It is the Goryo's Vengeance, Embercruel Grizzlebrand sort of synergy deck that we're kind of looking at, but having Ilrog as being like another way to have like another Through the Breach effect is pretty interesting. And they're playing Generator Servant, to get that and give Ilrog haste. So kind of just as a sort of flash combo finish. And when this deck goes off, man, it's pretty effective at it, to be perfectly honest. And it feels like, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but these kind of strategies are like fan favorite sort of things to kind of it's close to like Legacy Bring Animator in some ways. It's not as interactive necessarily. It is more of a combo deck than that deck can be. You don't have like unmasks or anything like that. You're not trying to you're not trying to have like the Chancellors in it or anything like that. But people like this type of deck. People like bringing back Grizzlebrands or Embercools or something like that.
Yeah, it's nice. I want to know how many people just like relaxed when you play turn 2 Generator Servant. They're like, oh, this guy's playing
what's
jank.
this guy doing?
And just died the next
like
turn.
Turn the Ilrog Embercool, you're dead. Like,
and he just goes
21,
blackjack.
21. But yeah, this deck's cool. The strategy has existed before. This is kind of just an upgrade to what you're trying to do with the deck. And yeah, Ilrog. Sweet.
Yeah, it is sweet. I want to mention also Ryan Ferry's playing Mono Red Phoenix. Someone else keep pushing that archetype. A little bit different build than I normally play, going with more 1-drops, no Bedlam Revelers, and playing multiple copies of Finale of Promise, and then 4 Light Up the Stage. So really just trying to like churn through the deck, which is pretty cool. I will say Light Up the Stage is not a card I enjoyed very much in Phoenix, but in a Narset, like in a format where Narset can see main deck play, it's not bad. Just like with Sleight of Hand, to have a card that works a little bit differently, than just like draw a card.
Yeah.
So,
I did want to talk about quickly Joshua Unthink playing Monred Prison, just for the sheer fact that he is playing a one of Krenko, 10th Street Kingpin. And I definitely I don't hate that. You know, this is a deck that is obviously playing Legion War Boss and Goblin Rabble Master. And while Krenko doesn't necessarily have that upfront value of making a token, it can get out of control pretty quickly. You do have to attack with it, which may not always be something that you want to allow your opponent to do with your Ensnaring Bridge, which is awkward. So that's kind of a push and pull that you have within your own deck. But I just want to give a shout out because it's Krenko. And he making the goblins.
This is another deck that the last time we saw this deck was playing Karn, so it's kind of interesting how most people in this event seem to move away from the Karn, the Great Creator deck.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah,
cool.
Eldrazi Shran. That's another one of those decks.
Oh man, 2 of them, 17th and 18th. Interesting.
That definitely get a boon from being able to play Karn the Great Creator, which I assume they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to mention the 21st place list as well. Yes, I'm sorry, 17th place and 18th place. Both are playing 4 copies of Karn the Great Creator, so that is your card deck.
Yeah.
Jessica Sahili. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Jessica Sahili.
Yeah, it's a fellow Guardian deck.
This deck is also playing 2 copies of Teferi Time Raveler with a third one on the board. You know what makes that combo a lot better?
If your opponent can't interact with you in any way, shape, or form.
At all. Oh my gosh. This is an archetype that might be worth looking at again with Teferi. Like, being quite honest. A card is busted.
Yeah.
Like, it's busted.
If there's anything that puts the kibosh on you ever getting your sweet Splitter Twin back, it's definitely the existence of Teferi Time Raveler.
Hey, you shut up. I can dream, okay?
I'm just saying.
Oh my god. You just broke my heart. Because you're right. Splinter Twin can trade places with Teferi when he does get banned in both standard and modern.
there you go. Perfect. We figured it out.
Man. But yeah, this is a sweet one. So, you want to look at the classic real quick since we're in modern mode, and then we can look at the standard classic?
Of course.
Maybe. My phone wants to open it. Is it Phoenix 1, the modern classic, Paul Mueller. And this is... it's very similar. Has 3 Pirates, essentially only 1 Crackling Drake. Is playing a Finale of Promise as well, which is pretty cool. We see again more gut shots in the main because of the aforementioned
Mans.
He's got 2 copies of Hive Mind in his sideboard.
Okay.
I need to know why.
I beats me.
Probably.
I do not know. The mirror match?
I guess, but like it's both of you.
But when they cast spells, right, you get them, right?
Yes, but when you cast spells, they get them.
Well, that seems
it is a 2-sided effect. I want to know. I actually can't fathom it. I want to know why. I don't see any pacts for the pseudo combo kill. Like that seems like a weird card to have in the sideboard.
Huh.
Okay.
I'm not good enough to think of anything, so... he did defeat Corey Davis playing Titan Shift, so again, another Titan Shift list showing up here in this top 8, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, more Mon Valley Acid Mosses.
We have 2 more humans lists showing up in 5th and 6th.
Why don't you take a look at Jessica Aggro?
Yeah, that's what I was going to lead up to.
Because that's got 4 copies of Fairy Time Raveler in it to go along with Geist Saint Traft and Vidalia Click Restoration Angel, Snapcaster, all those things. I'm actually kind of surprised to not see more like Restoration Angel here, because that card seems a lot better with Teferi,
Yeah,
because it definitely does what you want it to do.
yeah, you're not going to get blown out.
Yeah, there's no response to. So, yeah, that seems pretty solid. I obviously played a version of this deck for a while with the Geist and the Spellcaller. It's solid. So, interesting place to be. We live in a weird world right now.
I mean, we have this new really really good 3-mana planeswalker that's probably going to stick around forever, and people are just kind of pushing where it can go. What's the optimal shell for this card? And maybe it's multiple ones, but what does this look like? And I think that's an interesting way to push it.
Sure.
I mean, the card feels like a card that's really good in a sort of aggro tempo sort of archetype, so it makes sense.
My only issue with this, because I like where this deck is at, and with main deck Lava Mancers with bolts and helixes and paths, I feel pretty good about the humans matchup. The only issue is that Teferi and Aether Vial all do not, right? Unless I'm crazy, right? It's spells. So yeah, you want that to turn them off, but Aether Vial offers still a point of interaction that Teferi doesn't really pay attention to. So that is one sort of weakness to exploit there. But I like this deck a lot. So, anything else from the Classic?
Merfolk in 11th place, which is surprising. I doubt there's anything new or in this archetype, but I just find that pretty surprising. They do get Ashiok in the sideboard, yeah,
which is pretty sweet. Hey, there's a copy of Grixis Shadow. The deck still lives.
Yeah, and this is a deck that it is always around. It varies whether it's good or not from week to week. But I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna get anything from Horizons just quite yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another card. Maybe that's another deck that plays Yawgmoth.
That's possible.
Just because your humans matchup is so terrible that you're just oh well, I have this now. I have a 2/4 that can block all of your ground guys.
Right.
So I have this, then that takes the pressure off of my removal spells just to block your flyers, just to take care of your flyers, and maybe that's how you help shore up that matchup.
Yeah, maybe.
And we do have Bant Spirits, with nothing new. Oh, they decided to play one Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. That's interesting. Cool. Modern. Cool modern stuff. I'm sure some number of these decks that we haven't talked about here in the top 16 are probably playing Blast Zone. That's just my
that's probably true.
That is just my assumption.
It's probably true. I really want to take that Jeskai list for a spin. I'm not gonna lie. I really want to do that.
I mean, I'm sure it's fun.
Let's look at Standard. We had a Classic.
Yeah, Standard Classic. It was won by Robert Hayes playing 5-color Dreadhorde. So this is 5-color because your 5-mana Planeswalker slot is not Teferi. It is Nico Bolas, Dragon God.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's better or worse. Clearly, they won this tournament, so maybe, I played one match of it and lost to Mono Red, but that's probably my doing more than anything else. Another innovation, which actually came from Jim Davis, though, is Tristani. So Tristani Discordant, we have one of main and one of side, is just another way to kind of help that Mono Red matchup.
Not just that.
Yeah.
It's also good against the mass manipulation decks.
Correct. Yes, that is another good thing. Getting all your stuff back is very important. I think it's just...
just at the beginning
of
each
creatures.
Step, each player is getting control of all creatures they have.
So if they steal your Planeswalkers, they still gone.
That's fair.
But being able to get creatures back is at least something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it certainly is.
They defeated Just Guy Super Friends in the finals, piloted by Scott Matthews. And this list looks pretty much like the list du jour. This is the Mox Lotus, Mox Box. I forget their team name.
It's Mox Lotus.
This is the Mox Lotus.
Mox Box. Sounds like a weird like Happy Meal that Wizard serves.
It's the Mox Box.
What's the toy in the Mox Box?
It's the Mox Box cartoon block. Anyway, but yeah, this is just that list, and I don't expect very many changes to this list, to be perfectly honest. You have a deck that has a pretty good, if not great, mono red matchup as it stands, and the format doesn't exist where you can really have a viable control list to punish this or anything like that. But yeah, I think like Jeskai Super Friends is just like that's just the deck, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't know how much you're really trying to push it. You might be playing different, one or two cards different from everything. We do have like a Josh Feliciano playing an older version, but that has like the Casmina still and everything like that. But I still like the
Saheeli version's better.
Yeah,
it just is.
We do see that mass manipulation a deck that's been floating around, played by Kiwan Tran. And this is a Boreal Grazer sort of ramp deck that is also playing Nissa, who shakes the world, and you're really trying to ramping all this mana to steal a bunch of planeswalkers with mass manipulation, or make a bunch of angels with Finale of Glory. Typically, these lists have been blue-green only, but this Bant one is, I really think it's interesting. I mean, your splash isn't that hard. You're already playing a bunch of lands. I think the biggest downside is you don't get to play any sort of like Field of Ruin, which I think is actually probably a week behind now at this point in time. People have adjusted; they're playing basics now. The 5-color list is playing a basic force just to not get completely blown up by Field of Ruin, and so with that the case, maybe it's not that big of a deal. You would much rather have access to Small Teferi, which is obviously pretty good. And again, like I think having the backup plan of Finale of Glory and like being able to make a bunch of angels is fine.
Yeah, it's certainly not bad. And I think also just like as mentioned, like getting access to Teferi.
Yeah.
One of the easiest ways to beat these decks so far has just been like loading up on Duresses and counter magic. Like it just kind of like the things like mass manipulation or like the planeswalkers just roll over to Dovin's Veto to spell pierce even. So just like having Teferi to ensure that your big things happen is a huge deal.
Right.
So yeah, I like that a lot. Cool. Any of the other decks you want to mention here? Hey, Cody Napier. Shout out to Cody Napier. I don't think it's that Cody Napier, but still shout out to him just the same.
If it's the same Cody Napier, good job.
I want to mention this deck only specifically. He's playing Golgari mid-range because this is the deck that Morgan's referring to. This is the Japanese Golgari build.
Yeah, Japanese Golgari that's playing a bunch of Casualties of War.
Yeah, 4 Assassin's Trophy, 3 Casualties of War, and 4 Field of Ruin. It meant to prey on the mana bases of these 4 and 5 color decks.
It basically was like, well, if I can't beat, Command the Dreadhorde, make sure they never get to cast it.
Correct.
And I think that was a viable strategy. I don't know if it continues to be a viable strategy.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, one forest in the Jim Davis list doesn't fix these problems because, like, it just, yes, you don't get to just sinkhole them, which you were doing last week.
Yes.
When these lists, like one of these lists is in the MPL, I think it was Shota Yasuoka was playing this. But like, it is tough. Like if you hit their beacon, or you hit certain dual lands, it can get pretty hard for them to cast spells consistently. Especially when they're playing like that explore package. Like if you start hitting like their second green sources or their one-off color sources because you can leave them stranded with beacons too when they only have creatures. So it's not that bad, and like slowing them down enough to get to the point where you get to play Casualties of War and like I'll hit this creature, I'll hit this land, I'll hit this planeswalker. It's gross. It is a gross like 3-for-1. So I do think that like these decks will have to do more than just try and destroy all the lands. Like they're gonna have to. But at the end of the day, you're still playing a deck that just has like a good creature package against mono red. You're playing powerful planeswalkers, and Assassin's Trophy like lets you be very, very like balanced in what you can go after. Like you can deal with every kind of thing that's thrown at you. So the only thing I think in this format like that really beats this, it would be pure control consistently. Otherwise, it's just a rock deck that has a lot of good removals. So I don't think you're in a bad place with it. Yes, I think it's old, and I don't know that I would have all the way up to 3 copies of Casualties of War right now. But as the way the format shook out, this wasn't crazy.
Sure.
So I am sad to not see like they have one Crucible on the sideboard. I've enjoyed the one Crucible in the main for these just to keep Field of Ruining people.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's like just playing Esper Hero. Like, this has worked against me a fair amount. Where like, you can only play a couple of basics, and then I've been running out of blue sources by these decks a couple of times. Where it's just like, well, playing off top of my deck now. So it's not that crazy. This format is outside of the mono red decks, it's pretty taxing. And even like look at the Casualties of War against mono red. At any time, if you cast that card, you could hit a land, a creature, a planeswalker, and an enchantment.
Yeah, theoretically.
Now, granted, you probably lost that game.
You're dead. You're so dead. I mean, like, either you're dead or you have already succinctly won that game.
Well,
right?
but I mean, if you do it the turn, if you hit a land and a creature and whatever the 4-drop was, if you're able to like play Land of War Elves or your Paradise Druids to get to that, like it could turn around games that otherwise it couldn't. So, I think if you would have told me that Casualties of War was going to see significant play quickly in this format when we first saw, I'd be like, come on, with all the Azorbs and stuff running around. But Little Teferi has just made counter magic so frustrating. Like
so bad. And like I think like that, I feel like that's like close to a mistake, right? It has to be. It feels like an imbalance in what should be like the patterns of play that we see in Standard, because we don't have that pure control deck anymore. It's all just aggro decks and mid range decks.
Well, I mean, is the Planeswalker control deck a mid range deck?
I think Jeskai Planeswalkers is a mid range deck.
Interesting.
I think it is, because what are Planeswalkers but mid range threats that gain incremental value?
I mean, I think that's also a control thing. It's something that gains incremental value. It sits on the battlefield and gains incremental value.
I think that you could make a argument that it's like a tap out control deck.
Yes,
like,
I would agree with that.
But I don't think it's like a pure like
it's playing card advantage like things to sit on the field. It's playing slow card advantage things like Search Res Canta, and it's playing mass removal to control the board.
Sure, but I think that more qualifies it for a tap out control versus like a counter spell control deck.
I didn't say it was a counter spell control deck. I just called it a control deck.
Sure,
you're now making up stipulations. I think it's the control deck.
I just don't think it's a traditional.
It's certainly not a traditional control deck. And again, in a format with Teferi being a 4 of in multiple decks, how can it be? How can you have a traditional control deck?
But I think that's like. I just think it's like a disservice, because I think that it's like a traditional control deck is still very much so a important part of like the metagame, right? It is something that doesn't allow these, sort of more mid-range decks to just kind of run around and exist, and I have a hard time saying that like the Jeskai Planeswalkers deck is a control deck, because it feels like it wins the game in the middle, right? That's what it feels like. It wins the game because it wins the game with Sarkhan, and Sarkhan closes out the game super fast.
Just because it closes out the game fast doesn't stop it from being a control deck. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at traditional control threats, you wouldn't play as many as you play Sarkhan, but like, if it was Esper before playing like Chromium, or if it was Aetherling, or we're used to Teferi right now, but normally control decks, like once they have closed the door, their winning threat will just finish it. Control decks aren't always just Teferi draw go or Nephalia drown yard you until you die. Like that's
but
just
they're decks that traditionally like the door. Like the door begins to close much later. We're talking past like.
I think you when you look at it, you got to look at that differently though. Like it's not that the Sarkhan just closes the door so quickly. It's the nature of Planeswalkers. Like, we've never had a format like this where you actively had 3, 4, 5 Planeswalkers on the battlefield all the time. Planeswalker, like look at Sorin again. Teferi. Entire archetype built around Teferi, ticking up and accruing value while you sat behind it. And now you get essentially 3 or 4 of those, Teferi included in that group that just sits there. Yes, Sarkhan turns them all into things to attack with, but like, it's the collection of this card advantage engine that does it. You know what I mean? Like, Sarkhan by itself wouldn't do it, so Sarkhan by itself isn't the traditional finisher. You know what I mean? Like, it is a weird deck, but it's a control deck, in my opinion. Because it doesn't have... Mid-range decks have the ability to turn the corner at different times, right? The Planeswalker deck only has the ability to turn the corner with Sarkhan, unless they've had a very incredible Saheeli Karn draw. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So it's not traditional mid range. You are trying to stay alive long enough to dig to your Sarkhan.
Potentially, but I also think you're committing more threats to the board in the middle game too.
Oh, of course you are. But again, that's the nature of like adding permanents to the board. That's
sure.
Just because you have permanents to play doesn't mean it's a mid range deck.
I mean,
I think that's a frustratingly poor definition of that.
I don't know what I don't know what.
We've had tap out control multiple times. In the past.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, I don't know what distinctly separates putting permanents on the board and gaining incremental advantage of them from mid range versus what the Jeskai
I'll be honest.
Planeswalker.
I would think that mid range normally means creatures to me. Mid range means creatures.
I think in this metagame that isn't like you said, it's different from what it usually has. I don't think that's true though. Like I don't think that that's always consistently true.
But so like Esper Hero is mid range. It plays 8 to 10 creatures maybe. So that's what a mid range creature deck looks like in this format. The Planeswalker deck is a control deck.
I think they're just both mid range decks, in my opinion. Like I just think they are.
I can't disagree with you more on that one. I don't think that's true.
That's fine. I just like how I personally define them. Like they're both playing.
So you define like everything as a mid range deck then?
No,
kind of.
But no,
kinda.
But no, but you wouldn't say like so. Think about Esper Control before it became irrelevant. Like that's a control deck through and through.
Correct, that's a control deck.
Right.
I don't understand what your point there was. Yes,
I'm just saying like that. But I just think like where they're playing what that Jeskai. I don't think you could play that as a traditional control deck and be successful.
Was Callblade control?
I never played during Callblade, so I have no idea.
Okay, but was Callblade
I have no idea
control?
for what that I don't know what that deck was. I know what it consisted of. I know the cards that were in it, but I have no idea the play styles.
But I mean, like you could argue at times it could have been like tempo, but it was a card advantage deck. Like the whole reason you played Squadron Hawk is because you got to draw 3 cards when you cast it. Stoneforge Mystic was a card advantage engine. Jason White Skull was a card advantage engine. Like it played a lot of permanents on the battlefield, but they all were about accruing value. And I think that's closer to what the 5-color Planeswalker deck is. You're playing a lot of permanents, and you're probably tapping out. You have light counter magic to back it up, and you have solid removal when you need it. But otherwise, you are putting permanents on the battlefield that are going to out card advantage your opponent. In this case, you just have a flourishy finish. That's the only real difference is the flourishy finish. So, I think you're just associating dragons with mid range.
I mean, usually it's a safe bet, to be honest.
Even Sarkin's like, I can't believe I'm a part of this. Looks around, he's like, all right, you guys won't be dragons. So, anything else for standard? There's from a mono red here too. For me, who's been playing nothing but Esper Hero, the continual non-existence of that deck in these, I don't know how that makes me feel. Because either like people have forgotten about it and great, or like because like the arena metagame definitely still has that deck. So I don't know where it is in paper, and that kind of scares me. So
yeah. I think that all Esper variants just have like a hard road to travel to try to beat everything, to try to be viable against everything. And when you look at something like all the other decks in Standard, they all seem to have like viability against all the other each other. But I don't think Esper can universally say that yet.
Esper, to me, as I've been playing it a bunch, feels like Jund. Where I think I can play against most things, but there are definitely board states where you can fall behind.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to shift the deck with it. So there's a good chance that I'll end up on mono red by the time the actual invitational comes, but we'll see.
And even then, like I think the longer the format goes, like it's going to be here's going to be the 2 archetypes. It's going to be Dreadhorde and Jeskai Walkers, and like that, those are going to be the 2 best things that you can be doing in Standard. And then if you're playing mono red, you're hoping that you play against Dreadhorde and they draw the wrong half of their deck, because you probably can't beat the Wild Growth Walker Explore package if they draw that half, and you certainly can't beat Jeskai Walkers. So it's like that's kind of how I feel. And there's no one has figured out how to punish those decks effectively and not die to mono red. So
here's the thing: I think Esper is the deck that can do it. So I think
you have to be.
It has to be the right build, but I think Esper can do it. So I keep doing it.
Esper Hero specifically.
Esper Hero. I don't think it's Esper. No, I don't think it's Esper Control. No.
I just think I think that Esper Hero tends to fall into the same drawing like the right half of your deck for the right situation.
It certainly does.
So, but when there's decks in this format
that are Jund.
but there's just decks in the format that go, I don't really. If you're not doing all you can to affect what I'm doing, I'm going to win the game.
You're not wrong, but I think like you're also like shorthanding how the actual matches play out. Like
Probably.
like
I don't have the experience with everything.
Dreadhorde
you
is a
know?
deck that definitely feels that way, where like it is coming to inevitability, and you have to be prepared for. You either have to beat it before then, or be prepared for the inevitability. But Jeskai Walkers is a deck that is much more like, because it's a control deck, just like Esper Control, where it felt like, and this is where I'm going to get you. This is where I'm going to bring it all home. Okay?
Yeah, you're gonna
or Esper Control,
stick
like
it to me?
Esper Control feels super piecemeal until they have Teferi and they get to start untapping with it, right? Like they're hoping to piece together the right removal and counter spells till they get to that point. That's how Jeskai Walkers functions too when you're playing against it, where they are trying to piecemeal their board state together until they can find the Sarkhan and do this. They can't guarantee which planeswalkers they're going to always see. Sometimes Spell Pierce is really good, sometimes it's really bad, sometimes Shock is really good, sometimes it's really bad. And they struggle, just like Esper Control does, against consistent like dual pressure. So a creature and like discard spells. A creature and a planeswalker. Like, and that's the one thing Esper here does good. I have a overwhelming winning record against Jeskai Walkers on Arena. And I think part of the reason there is that you have both of those things. Command the Dreadhorde is harder because it has that inevitability, but because the Jeskai Walker deck plays like a control deck that has to assemble its pieces, they just don't do it immediately. Mono Red collapses to it because they're playing infinite shocks and infinite Deafening Clarions backed by a Walker. You know what I mean? Backed by one Walker. But other decks don't just fold to the first like Teferi. You know what I mean? Like to the first Teferi with the thing backed up. So I think it's interesting to see how they play out. Command the Dreadhorde is tough. I've been playing Unmoored Ego and going back and forth on that. I think Ashiok still deserves more consideration, especially against those decks, because it's also pretty good against Phoenix as well.
Which is another deck that's quickly falling into irrelevancy.
You're not wrong. It's all over Arena though.
So
it's Canister beat me with today.
Here's where we have to have the discussion of like,
I don't know what I don't know, because my testing is
what's
on
the
Arena.
metagame? Like, what's the metagame going to be?
You're not wrong. My testing's on Arena. I don't know.
And I think,
here's what I know.
that's tough.
I beat Mono Red and I can beat Jeskai Super Friends. So that makes me feel like I can play in the format. But who knows what I'll sit down and play against in paper. Magic Online always used to feel like it was ahead of the regular metagame, and you could prepare for an event that way. Arena is a totally different beast. So I don't know anymore.
I don't know either. It sucks.
It's tough.
It's tough. I mean, I just have the MCQ to like figure out. And I don't know. I think it's just interesting. I really like the Jeskai Walker's deck. I think that's just a deck that presents a lot of powerful threats all throughout the turns of the game that disrupt and gain you advantage. And I think like do a lot more than what you're expecting, right? I think a lot of those cards look kind of mopey, separated, but together, like they just do a lot of good stuff. And you're always doing something. You're not just waiting around. Like right. That's what I like the most about it. Like you're always committing something, and like Mox Opal it just feels like a very well crafted deck when you look at it. It feels like the people who built that deck knew at every step of the game and with every pressure what was going to be happening, and I appreciate that. And the Dreadhorde deck just feels like the most powerful thing that you could be doing in the format for sure. And it feels like they get to resolve, a sorcery and like win the game basically, depending on what's happening, obviously. And I don't know. I wish. I don't know. There's just so much like it just feels like you're boxing these single decks that you could probably like try to find an angle to fight, and it's just I don't know if it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, is Gruul worth it? Is there like a Gruul deck to try to figure out here and try to fight? I don't know.
Not that I've seen. No, I will say even something like Rekindling Phoenix, which seems like it would be a good way to fight these things, feels so bad against Teferi. Like it's the old Jace check. Like
yeah,
like Rekindling Phoenix went from like almost immediately like Resurgent in the format, a dominant force. You had Gruul Warriors as a deck, and like you had to fight through these Phoenixes. And now it's like, oh, you played a 4-drop that didn't affect the board. Bounce it.
Yep.
Hope nice time warp. You know what I mean? Like so, I just it's tough. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. Standard's in a spot.
It's in a spot. It's in a spot. There's more viable decks than I think the last 2 weeks are showing you, but our mana base our mana bases are also showing us, just like we had in we had fetches, we had cons and duels. When you give the mana this way and you put these kind of threats, especially like hybrid walkers and stuff, like, man, players are going to play just the best cards. That's what they're going to do. So,
yeah, they're gonna figure it out. All right, so that's going to be everything for our episode this week. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, want to give you some options for contacting us if you'd like. We have a Twitter. It's your Endstep, and when you add us, it's at your Endstep. We also have an email address, at yourendstep@gmail.com, and we also have Facebook, facebook.com/@yourendstep. If you're listening to us via one of the lovely apps that allow you to rate and review a show, please do so. We really feel that we're a 5-star podcast over here, so we'd appreciate a 5-star review. If you are a patron, thank you so much for contributing to our Patreon. You can find out more information about our Patreon at patreon.com/@yourendstep. And that's and if you're listening to us from Legit MTG, be sure to check out some of the articles they have on that website and check out their online store. But that's going to be everything for us this week. We'll catch you next time, and you have a great one. Bye.